Hey, how's it going everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day and welcome to today's Pokemon Go video. Okay, so recently Niantic posted a very short blog post talking about how they're bringing just big changes and improvements to raid battles and gym battles. And I think it got a lot of players discussing the future of Pokemon Go, especially when it comes to raiding. Now, it's in my personal opinion that raiding is a core aspect of Pokemon Go. If you do not have good raiding content, then players are going to feel bored with this game. It has been essential for every Pokemon Go player for the past several years. Like, if you want some of the best Pokemon or some of the rarest shinies, you need to engage yourself with raid battles because that has been essentially the strongest form of endgame content in Pokemon Go, and pretty much every single player can jump into it. I mean, if you think about it, everything within Pokemon Go is about how you progress in raids. Every Pokemon you catch and all the Stardust and candies that you collect, it all goes towards powering up your best Pokemon, and then you use those Pokemon to get even more powerful Pokemon within raid battles. This has essentially been the gameplay loop for Pokemon Go ever since they introduced raids into it. I mean, sure, there's other forms of content within Pokemon Go like PvP and now with max battles, but most of that stuff is more complementary. It's not necessarily the main gameplay loop that drives a lot of players to continue playing Pokemon Go. So for me, I feel like the health of raiding essentially correlates with the health of the game itself. If raiding is struggling and people are not raiding, then essentially people are not interested in Pokemon Go as a whole. And this was extremely apparent back in the day when Niantic nerfed remote raids. Ever since that change was implemented into Pokemon Go, it just felt like the sentiment around the game itself was just extremely negative among a majority of players. And it's taken a while for Niantic to kind of recover from that. I feel like a lot of players are a little bit more positive nowadays compared to back then. But I do feel like when it comes to this blog post, it really shows their intention to make raiding just a lot better, and I'm actually very pleased with that. Now, it is my belief that this is 100% related to all of the issues with raiding that a lot of players have been reporting as of late. If you jump into raid battles right now, you will find that those raid bosses are a lot more difficult, and the reason for that is because the behavior for dodging attacks as well as unleashing your own charge attacks has been shifted in a way where it's going to be really difficult to take down certain raid bosses. And I really feel like this blog post is related to that. My one concern is that based on the wording of this blog post, it feels like a lot of those difficulty shifts with raid battles are actually intended, maybe in order to fix the latency issues and some of the gameplay issues. Niantic is making it so that it is much harder to dodge charge attacks from raid bosses, as well as them spamming those charge attacks a lot more frequently. If that is the case, then I do feel like Niantic needs to be a lot more transparent more than this one small blog post. They need to make sure that players are aware of how the raid battles are starting to change, and then make sure that players are fully ready and capable to actually take on some of these raid bosses, because for the last couple of weeks it's been incredibly difficult and incredibly messy within the Pokemon Go community. People are finding that certain raid bosses that were once really easy are now extremely difficult to take down, albeit impossible for some players. So because of that, there has been a lot of negative sentiments around raiding within the Pokemon Go community, and I think if Niantic is intending these changes to be the future of raiding, then they need to make sure players are crystal clear about all of that, because having this blog post that's extremely vague and just not really giving a lot of information is really not going to cut it with the Pokemon Go community. People want to know from a macro level as well as a micro level how raiding is going to be moving forward. If Niantic is wanting to improve raid battles, then by all means they should explore how they could do that, because like I said, the health of Pokemon Go is strongly contingent on the health of raiding. But if their improvements is to make raid battles a lot more difficult than they used to be, then players need to know that that is going to be the case. If players are going to be surprised by this, then I think it's not going to bode well for Pokemon Go as a whole. Now, I totally recognize that when Niantic says improvements, that can encompass anything. Like, maybe they're trying to add some new gameplay mechanics to raid battles that are actually going to be interesting and make the gameplay a lot more dynamic, but in order for a lot of those new mechanics to work, they need to change up how dodges and charge attacks work with the raid bosses. So right now it might seem incredibly difficult, but in the future when they add a lot of these new utilities, then those new mechanics are essentially going to offset the difficulty of dodging and charge attacks right now. That's kind of the line of thinking that I'm going with right now, and I'm trying to be just cautiously optimistic. I really do think that Niantic is trying to make an effort to improve raids, and it's been apparent for a very long time because ever since they nerfed remote raids, I feel like what they need to do is improve the experience of raiding as a whole so that players are still engaging with it, because right now it does feel like raiding has fallen off quite a bit. I've certainly made videos talking about that, but when I talk to my local communities and when I just observe how many people show up to Wednesday raid hours, it just feels like there has been a drastic decline over time, and that is not a good thing for Pokemon Go. I really think that spells disaster for the future of this game. Niantic needs to make sure players are raiding, and the best way they could do that is by making engaging content as well as bringing in raid bosses that players care about. I think if Niantic focuses on those two things, then I think raid battles are going to be fine for the foreseeable future. So yeah, ultimately, I'm totally in favor of this blog post, even though they really didn't say much. Like, it's a step in the right direction. I think players have been wanting so much more transparency and communication from Niantic pretty much since the very beginning, but it's been extremely difficult. Like, ever since Niantic started changing a lot of things within Pokemon Go, they really have been keeping their lips shut, and a lot of people within the Pokemon Go community has not received that well, but the very few times they actually communicate and actually talk about their intentions, I think Pokemon Go players always celebrate that. The biggest example of that is, of course, when they changed up and completely revamped Mega Evolutions. When they did that, they had a whole big blog post talking about it, and they actually had a video explaining a lot of the changes, and players were extremely happy about that, and I think it's something I wish Niantic did more, but it is what it is. I do think that for the very least, this blog post is, again, a step in the right direction, but I really hope they end up doing more. If they do drastic changes to rating, I really hope they spell it out so that the Pokemon Go community is fully aware of what these changes are and what Niantic's intentions are with those changes. But yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about down below. What are you thinking regarding the future of raiding, and how are you responding to this blog post? Again, it's a very small blog post. I think in total there's only about like 6 or 7 sentences within this blog post, but at the very least they're just stating that they're going to be making some changes, and I don't know how the Pokemon Go community is reacting to that, but yeah, definitely share your thoughts and let's have a great discussion. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of it. I am Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all in the next one.